Hey guys, it's the dude from Beast Mode Gaming. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making a series of videos on how to tank in the secret world. This is end game tanking that we're going to be dealing with. So beginner tanking for nightmare dungeons basically. So that's what this is going to be all about. It's going to be an entire series of videos on how to tank every single boss of every single dungeon in the secret world. That's what's going to be going on. So I'm going to be starting with the very basics. I think a lot of people are intimidated by tanking. There's not enough tanks in this game, basically. That's why I'm doing this. And I think people are a little bit intimidated by it. I think mainly because it's not like DPSing where you can have like a group of 3 or even 4 DPSs sometimes. And if there's one DPS that's a little bit rubbish, or his gear's a little bit crappy, or he's got like some blue gear or something, and the rest of the group can carry, and that's okay. Or if he doesn't have enough hit rating and is glancing a little bit, he doesn't have enough penetration, the other guys are penetrating and they're sort of picking up his slack. But when you're tanking, there's no margin for error. When you're tanking Nightmare, that is. No one's going to pick up your slack. You need the right stats to start with, the right set of abilities to start with, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to be going over a couple of things. I'm going to try and not make this video too long. See if I can cover all the basics in this video, and then from after this video I'll be doing sort of dungeon by dungeon exactly what to do, what to impair, when to impair it, why to impair it, all the basic stuff that tanks need to know. So let's start with the gear. So what I recommend is, if I go to character statistics here, now obviously all my gear is 10.9. Your gear probably won't be 10.9, especially if you're watching this video, or maybe it will be. I mean, you could be somebody who's been a DPS or a healer for a very long time and you want to move on to the next thing. Well, this video is right up your street. This isn't for vets who've been tanking for the last 4 years like I have. This is aimed at dudes who want to start tanking and don't quite know where to start. Another thing I've noticed is there's a lot of bad advice in this game. A lot of the times I just go in the general chat or in the Noob Mayor's channel or somewhere, and I just read the advice that people give new tanks, and I just think to myself, it's ridiculous. Like, they shouldn't be giving that sort of advice out. So this is hopefully going to combat all of that. I'm going to show it exactly how it works, and you'll be able to see it work rather than just some random backseat dude who thinks he knows what's going on but doesn't. Okay, so the stats. I'm running just about 4K attack rating. Usually I run more than 4K because I got these little benefaction tonics over here. So I'll just pop that over there. I recommend these. They're very cheap. I think they cost like 50 packs or something each. It's ridiculously cheap. Grants 120 attack rating, 120 heal rating, and 470 health for 60 minutes. And that persists through death. So you can run that for an hour, and I buy those like in stacks of like 100. I just keep that stuff. Obviously I don't have any now because I use them all. But generally when I go buy them, I'll buy 100 and I'll just keep them in my inventory. So they are awesome. Right, so that's the first thing. If I run that, that'll take my attack rating to just over 4K. And attack rating's important. It's not all about health. You need to do a certain amount of damage in order to hold aggro, especially if you're running dungeons with groups of DPSs that have like 10.9 gear. If you don't have the right stats, or you don't have the right gear or the abilities, you're going to lose aggro a lot and your healer's going to hate you. So yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I'm veering off topic here a little bit, but okay, so attack rating 4K. My hit rating 656. That's mandatory. You need to have 650 hit rating as a minimum as a tank. Like I said before, if a DPS wants to run 400, good for him. That's fine if he glances. But if you're going to impair something and you hit impair and it glances and the whole group dies, well, you're going to get a lot of hate. So again, yeah, 650 hit is mandatory. You must have that. Let's go over to penetration. I have 902, so I'll have penetration on my blade. So 900 is really where you want to be at. A little bit less, it's okay if you're starting, but you want to get that penetration up there, especially if you're planning on doing some DPS. If you're not penetrating enough, you're not going to do enough DPS, and once again you'll lose aggro, and it all starts again like from the beginning, like a cycle. Breaching Signet. Now that's what's running on there. That's pretty much mandatory for a tank. All tanks must have breaching. There's no sort of question about that. You need that. If you don't apply the breaching or the breaching effect on the boss, then your DPSs are going to be losing out on 24% extra damage from penetrating hits, which is massive. So that's what you need. You need that. So let's go next to the head. So we got health, block rating, and signet of order. So order, I mean, if you're doing block tanking, order is the way to go. There's no other head signet that's really going to do better for you, pretty much. Then we're running hit rating on my major. Doesn't matter what signet you go for there. Hit rating again, so 2 major talismans with hit rating. That's going to give you 656 hit, and that's all you need. You don't need any more hit. Right, then penetration on there with violence again. Doesn't matter so much. Subway tokens, block rating, and penetration rating. So let's go look at my overall block. 785, and that's perfect. 785 is enough to tank anything in here, except for also like Nightmare Breached. I think you need a little bit more over there, and a little bit different stats. So that's pretty much it for your gear side of things. Let's go talk about augments. Let's talk about augments. So, okay, the Vexing augment. Now, you want to get these augments to level 5 as fast as you can. Vexing augment, they're so cheap in the auction house, you can buy them for nothing. Level 5 on this, resonating this augment to an active ability will increase the amount of hate generated by this ability by 100%. That's double aggro, and that is awesome. So if you can get that, that's good. The next thing, piercing augment. Resonating this augment to an active ability will increase your penetration chance by 7.5%. Again, more penetration. That means you're going to stack debilitate faster, you're going to do more damage, and that sort of thing. And that's what you want. This one over here is not so important. I got the fierce augment. Resonating this augment to an active ability will increase your penetration chance by 5% and your critical hit chance by 5%. I mean, that one's not so important. As long as you've got vexing and piercing, none of these other augments matter. You need vexing and you need piercing. So fierce, that's just a bonus. Accurate, a little bit more attack rating. I run on here the curing augment. Basically, I couldn't think of anything else to put on there. Solid augment for 100 extra block rating. And then I've got inspiring augment. So every time I use this in pair, the entire group gets 5% extra DPS for 5 seconds. And that can only happen once every 30 seconds. So don't put that on an ability that sort of spams that, like, because it won't work. Internal sort of cooldown on there, 30 seconds. Right. Let's talk about the build. Now the build, that's going to be a big thing. So the builder, we're talking Blade Torrent. The reason why is because the Frenzy, it deals 264 damage to 6 enemies in a 5-meter radius. And this attack generates a high amount of hate. So I recommend that. There's others you can use, but to be honest, the more hate you have, especially in the beginning, if your gear's not so good, put Vexing on that and you'll be absolutely fine. So the next one, Chop Shop, that's a focus. You don't have to use that. What you can use is if you find you're still taking a little bit too much damage, you don't have enough block rating, you don't have enough penetration, so you can't get the debil up. What you can do is you can actually slot. Let me go see if I can find it real quick. Where the hell is it? Steel Palace over here. It's also a frenzy. So If any targets are afflicted, you gain a minor ward effect which reduces all damage by 7.5%. So it does a good amount of damage. I don't know if you can read that writing. I play in 4K. So if you're not on a 4K monitor, I apologize. You'll struggle to be able to read exactly what's going on here, but I'll read you it. So basically this does 481 to 952 depending on how many resources you have. Yeah. So, and that's a 7.5% damage reduction for 8 seconds, and that's pretty awesome. Okay, so that takes care of the blade builder and the consumer. I go for more DPS because my stats are perfect, and I go for chop shop, so a bit more DPS. Okay, molten steel. Now this is a blade hammer tank build, and that's what I prefer. If you like to use chaos, go ahead. If you like to use elemental, go ahead. You know, whatever floats your boat, take your pick. But this is the way I tank. This is the way I recommend people to tank. And if you do it right and you follow the rules, you'll have no problems tanking. So molten steel, again, good damage. Now, what you can do is over here I run martial discipline. The only reason I have this slotted is purely for this entire little series of videos I'm going to do. I'm not going to be showing high DPS tanking or something like that. I'm going to be showing full defensive tanking for somebody who doesn't have the right stats, and you want to be able to mitigate as much damage as you can with your gear and your build, basically. So I could do a lot more damage by slotting different abilities and things, but to be honest, doing damage is not the tank's job. So you could take martial discipline out and put in something like full momentum. So when the buffs go, you could do chop shop, you could do molten steel, full momentum, then another molten steel. And to be honest, with the level of DPS these days, by then the boss will be dead. I mean, most bosses last like 6 seconds or something and then they die. So that's up to you. Okay, so 3 in pairs, that's what I recommend. So trial by swords, beatdown, and art of war. What I like about art of war is it forces the boss to attack you. So if you don't have all like the attack rating, the penetration rating and stuff, and it'll help you maintain aggro, basically. So what I would do is I would use Art of War as my first impair, and that'll basically keep them attacking you. So you hopefully, if you're going to be losing aggro, the boss will be dead before you manage to lose aggro because of that ability right there. Okay, so that takes care of it. So we've got 3 impairs right there, and we got that damage mitigator, so martial discipline, and then rocket launcher, death from above. Once again, I like a dash. I like to be able to get to the boss real quick. You'll find if you're tanking for the first time or maybe the first couple of times, the DPSs are super trigger happy, and as soon as you get near the boss, they'll just randomly start opening fire, whether you're attacking the boss or not, and that's going to make maintaining aggro hard. So what I do is when I see the boss, I rocket launch straight in there, make sure to get the first hit, and that's going to help you a lot. So strategic right there, that's what you want. Okay, so again, a couple of things. You can look at these stims and these kickbacks. I use the penetration stim. Grants 232 penetration rating for 20 seconds, 2-minute cooldown on all stimulants. So extra pen, I don't really need to tell you what that means. It means faster debilitate, more DPS, basically all the stuff that you need for a tank. And then this one over here, for 20 seconds, whenever you land a penetrating hit, you get 425 crit power. So that works with this chop shop over here. So as soon as the DPSs hit the buffs, you're going to get a giant critical rating sort of boost from the buffs, and every time your chop shop lands a critical hit, you're going to do a lot of sort of additional damage from that. I mean, I couldn't really think of anything else that I'd want to put in there other than the crit power one, specifically for the buffs. I mean, if your block rating's low or something like that, you could slot whenever you penetrate, you gain 400 block rating or something like that. Whatever you want, you can put in there. So something that I think is extremely underrated is this little thing right here, the agitation configuration. So increases Hate generated by 400% for 15 seconds, and that's only got a 1 minute cooldown. And I think for a tank, that is just awesome. I think it's the best drop in the game. It's gold, literally. That there, it doesn't matter who's going to be DPSing. I mean, I've had like a couple of high-end melee DPSs. It doesn't matter who it is, you're not going to lose aggro with that. And also, that makes it so you don't have to run stoicism, and that is awesome. I hate stoicism. Okay, so let's go over the passives. Cool, calm, and collected. So whenever you block an attack, you gain a major ward effect, which reduces all incoming damage by 25%. That's awesome. Whenever you critically hit, you gain a beneficial effect that increases all damage by 8%, and that's awesome as well. So especially over the buffs, that's good. Agitator, that's mandatory. All tanks must have Agitator. We had a couple of instances where we were in pug groups with tanks and they didn't even realize they should be running Agitator. Couldn't believe it. It's like all they need is a little bit of health and they're absolutely fine. They weren't running any impairs, nothing. And that's just ridiculous, especially at nightmare sort of level. That I'm surprised they've lived as long as they have. Okay, 12 gouge. So whenever you penetrate, your target becomes weakened by a single stack of debilitated effect. That is awesome. So that reduces all damage received by 3% per stack for 10 seconds, and this can stack up to 10 times. So that's 30% damage mitigation right there, and that is just ridiculous. That's got to be the biggest damage mitigator in the game. Like, that is just so good. That's mandatory. All tanks must have that, and if they don't, they need to tell a DPS to run it. Okay, so Incision. Whenever you penetrate, your target becomes afflicted. Now, all tanks really want to afflict. They want to weaken. They need to do like exposed, debil, weakened, afflicted, the whole lot. That way, the DPSs are free to run whatever passives they want. And that's the tank's job to do all of that stuff. So here it is. That's my afflict. That's my weaken. That there, increased penetration chance from frenzy abilities. So that's why I said frenzy builder, extra penetration, frenzy right there. That's awesome. I love it. So that's what that is. And then we've got breakdown. So whenever you hit a target with a blade, chaos, or hammer ability, becomes weakened by a single stack of exposed effect, which increases all damage received by 2% per stack, and this stacks 10 times. So that's an additional 20% damage on the boss. That's an additional 20% of all incoming damage, whether it's a passive, whether it's a DPS doing it, you doing it, the healer doing it, whatever it is, the boss is taking 20% more damage. That's mandatory. Tanks must have that. And then sudden return. Again, this is for the DPS side of things. If you don't DPS enough, you're not going to maintain aggro. So, whenever you penetrate, you also perform an additional hit that deals 302 physical damage. So, that's not mandatory. You can put whatever you want in there. If you've taken too much damage, put some damage stuff in there, whatever you want. But that's what I run, that's what I recommend people run, and you'll be absolutely fine. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, let's go over the minor augments. I think this is going to be a thing. So what you really want is the ablation signet. So on there, when your health is below 50%, the next 5 hits against you do 25% less damage for 12-second cooldown. That is ridiculous. Like, you need that. I think for tanking, that's mandatory. Next one, salvation. When you block, evade, or are glanced, you gain a 6% damage reduction. Again, damage reduction, anything that reduces your damage is awesome. And then this one over here, I mean, I've been too lazy to change that out. Really, I should, because it's only a 10.4. That's a drop piece from the New York raid, so that's rubbish. Like, but yeah, I don't recommend running that anymore. Those days are over. The boss dies before you get the full stack of DPS effect. Like, the boss is dead before that even happens. So, yep, that's pretty much it. Those don't matter. That doesn't matter. So what else? What else is there? Feels like I'm forgetting something. You can run a leech potion. That's another thing. I think what I find a lot is sometimes something will happen or your healer will disconnect or whatever. You don't want to wipe the group. What do? Down here, you slot a leech potion. So heal 64% of the damage dealt for 10 seconds, and that's got a 90% cooldown, 90-second cooldown, sorry. So this one over here this is the leech potion for scenarios. So, but it has the same effect on the non-scenario version. So 64% of damage dealt is sent back to you as heals. So that's pretty good. So I recommend that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's the build. This is generally the build that I use for everything except Slaughterhouse. I heal tank that. Facility, I heal tank that. And Hell Fallen. Hell Fallen, I run a solo impair tank build, which I'll make a video on that. You'll see it in the video later on. But I just wanted to go over some basics, and that's pretty much it. I mean, to make a couple of points on it, like summarize it a little bit, the tank needs a lot of block rating, a minimum of 650 hit rating, a good amount of attack rating, no less than 8k health, because the last boss of just about every dungeon can hit you with a single attack that's more than 8k damage. So if you run less than that, chances are you'll get one-shotted. You definitely want 3 impairs, so whatever weapons you go for, you need to make sure that you have at least 3 impairs, and the whip doesn't count because the whip glances like 90% of the time. The whip is crap. That's why I run rocket launcher, because the whip is not reliable enough. So we've covered all of that. That's pretty much it, I think. And as much penetration. You don't want to run any critical rating or any crit power rating as a tank. You want attack rating, block rating, hit rating, and penetration rating. That's it. Any other stats, it's a waste. Right. Let's leave it at that. As for the augments, I think we went over that. So vexing and piercing. The rest, who cares? Even if you don't have any, it doesn't matter. As long as you got those 2 there, you're good. Yeah, okay. If you have any questions, don't forget to pop them down in the comments, and I'll see if I can get back to you, or if you want to know something about anything really. I do healing, DPS, heal tanking, leech tanking, buff tanking, whatever it is, I do it. So just leave a comment below. Sweet.